Morning. It's good to see you guys. I missed you. So you still have a couple minutes to work on the quiz if you haven't taken it yet. I think I might run to the bathroom before we really get started. So you have like 6 minutes. And I'm gonna make Hannah co-host so that she can let people in. All right, I'll be right back. No worries. I'm gonna take 1 second. So 3-ish more minutes. All right, so another minute or two. Okay, one more minute. Okay, so if you are still taking the quiz, it will have kicked you out by now. Welcome. I'm happy to see you guys again. I missed you on Tuesday. I wanted to kind of tell you what's coming up quickly before Damien kind of takes over with his presentation. So you'll notice, so this is today, you'll notice that next class is the participant observation. This is almost like your kind of midterm. So I told you about this last time, but a lot has happened since so I thought I'd remind you. Any questions about this? So for this assignment, the idea is like, I want you to kind of observe people interacting in some kind of setting and try to do it for at least an hour and take notes. And then analyze what you see, linking it to readings we've looked at so far. This is worth 10% of your overall grade. It'll be 3 to 4 pages typed and double spaced. And it's due on Tuesday, but you'll notice we don't have any reading due for Tuesday. And also like, I'm not holding class on Tuesday, the 30th, to give you time to work on this thing. I'm not formally holding class, but I'll kind of check in on the Zoom. And if you have questions or if you want to kind of check in and ask anything, I'll be there. Okay. Any questions now about that assignment? Okay. All right. So I'm going to make it so that Damien can share and turn it over to him.
Okay, so I'm Damien, and today I'll be talking about intersectional dating. So with the Erica Cheeto Childs article, Navigating Interracial Borders, Black-White Couples in Their Social Worlds, in 1967, the Supreme Court had overturned any laws against interracial marriages as unconstitutional, even though that there have been major changes throughout the race relations in our country compared to the civil rights struggle. There still happens to be many racial borders. She mentions that after she moved to LA, prior to high school and college, she had started a relationship with an African American man that she eventually ended up marrying. But before this happened, she really wasn't aware and had no clue that it would bring such controversy just to her life and her family as usual. White people never really directed their opposition to their relationship, but their words and actions said otherwise. And one of the quotes she had was, because of their location on the line between white and black, interracial couples often witness or bring forth racialized responses from both white, and black. In the other section, the separate worlds of whites and blacks, black-white relationships have long been viewed as signs of improving race relations. Interracial couples have also been met with lots of opposition, as I mentioned before, from both sides of the race spectrum. In the grand scheme of things, she came to the realization that there's just a deep-rooted assumption that interracial couples are somehow different than same-race couples. And in the US, the responses to black-white couples usually ranged from disgust to curiosity to endorsement. And they're either portrayed as deviant, unnatural, pathological, exotic, or even sexual. Interracial couples come together across the boundaries of race and perceive racial differences, and that leads to them creating multiracial families. And it can also be expected that the family is the greatest source of hostility towards these couples, especially since they'll be changing the racial dynamic in their own families. And here's just a movie clip.
Oh, you got two. You might have echoes.
Can you hear it okay?
I can't hear anything. You might have to stop sharing and then reshare with the sound on. It's a little box that you check.
Okay. Can you hear it now?
Baby, hey, look at, oh my, oh. My baby.
You? Mom, how you?
My man, Percy Jones.
Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, man, I like this, man. Nice, solid, strong grip. Wow, let me ask you a question. You doing everything you can to make my daughter happy?
Oh no, Dad.
Hey, sweetheart. You can take that to the front door for me. Take it to the front door. Hey, man, I'm just giving your friend a once over. Sir, like I said, don't stand there like a statue. Take it to the front door. That's that square hole. Look in there, you see? Inside, furniture.
No, you see.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
Take it to the front door, right there, wide open. Okay, no, come, sweetheart, let him talk. Hey, see, just know anybody wouldn't come out and ask you a question like that. See, Percy Jones is just not anybody. Let me ask you one more time. Are you doing everything to make my baby happy?
I'm not sure if I am, but I'd definitely like to have a crack at that.
Well, sweetheart. Hey, young man, how to relax. I got your money.
No, see, please,
Sweetheart, please. I'm glad you're here. Hey, what's your damage? $30, that should cover it?
Dad.
Sir,
Here you go.
Dad, this is Simon.
Simon.
Yes.
Well, who are you?
oh, that's my cab. I'm Wesley Thompson. But if you're still down with me making your girl happy, I'm good to go.
Why don't you just go?
Just
Wow. I wish Teresa would have told me you guys were black. That would have saved an awkward moment.
Kind of like this one.
Yeah.
Welcome home, sweetheart. Thank you, Mom.
Let me get that,
Got
sweet.
it.
So that was just a quick movie clip of this movie, Guess Who. It's basically about interracial couple that really didn't tell their families about each other up until that very moment. And you can see that the dad was a bit taken back that he didn't really realize that his daughter's boyfriend happened to be a different race. So my questions are, even though the United States has come such a long way with race, why do you think there are still so many racial issues going on today?
Do you mean like in general, or do you mean with like couples?
Bit of both, I guess.
I feel like one of the biggest things probably has to do with the way that like social media has to play and stuff. But I also feel like it helps us be aware. So I don't know. I feel like that question is just a little tricky, but it does have many different answers.
Yeah. So maybe our assumptions about race are not as easy to overcome as we think they are, maybe. Also.
I think there's also a lot of like stereotypes that people follow.
Mhm.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I kind of looked at it as it's probably also the way that some people think, and they drill it into their children. That's the way they end up thinking, and it just keeps going on and on and on. The next question is, do you think that in those interracial couples, do you think that they focus on the privileges that they may have over the other one? And if so, do you think this causes issues in those relationships?
These are hard questions. I think probably it's got to be yes, right? It's got to be that like people don't really realize how much race is an issue until they start dating like someone of a different race, and then like, and it's got to cause tensions, right? Because they're culturally maybe not always on the same page.
I also feel like it has to do with like for example in like India and stuff, like those are arranged marriages. So I think like certain like cultures have like their own rules, and like if you don't abide by it, then like that could be where the issue falls into play.
Mhm.
But I also feel like in the United States there's not really that much that I see in like my day-to-day life. So I don't know, this question is a little tricky to me too.
And for the last question, as time goes on, do you think interracial couples will become more and more common in our society?
I think so. I mean, even if you look at like our parents or like our grandparents' generation, there's not a lot of like interracial like relationships, but like now being in like high school and college, like I see it all the time in like an everyday lifestyle type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. And that's it.
Awesome. Sorry, I wasn't sure if Zoom had frozen on me. I was like, oh no. I feel it's being really laggy right now, but yeah. Yes. Good job, Damien.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So this is, I don't want to kind of repeat too much of what Damien said, so I'm going to kind of go fast. Do you guys know who this family is? This is Kamala Harris. There she is. And there's her maternal grandparents. So she is half Indian from India and half Black. And now she is vice president of the United States and a woman. So I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to her at the beginning. Okay, here we go. Also, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little like low-key obsessed with Meghan and Harry, especially after their interview, as a kind of another example of an interracial couple who is kind of facing a lot of backlash from family, but also politics. Yeah, I had the same exact quote as Damien because I think it's a really good quote. So interracial couples often bring forth racialized responses from both whites and Blacks, even from people who think that they're beyond race, or that they're not like thinking about race or not affected by race anymore. Sometimes they react not just to interracial couples, but like to their children's kind of romantic pics in kind of problematic ways. So she talks about how names for these relationships are always very sexualized, imagination and amalgamation, race mixing, jungle fever. Like it's always kind of really kind of talked about as kind of in dehumanizing ways, right? All right, Hannah, I'm gonna let you take over.
Okay. So I looked at this article on the New York Times, or on the Times, sorry, on the Times. And it's about these couples, and basically they just put in their opinions about like everyday life and things like that. And what's really important about interracial couples is this title up here: advocacy is a love language. So tough conversations about interracial couples are uncommon, and they're becoming more common these days. So support and advocacy aren't just bonuses, they become imperative, especially with everything going on, with all our movements and everything and good things. So Bill Schaefer, 29-year-old writer and actor in New York, and his wife, Jenny Rube, is 28, and she is white. So this is what he is saying about her. I think for her, the light bulb that has changed is not being racist. It is not the same. It is not the same as being anti-racist. And now she's really taking that to heart. And that's a really important quote, because there's a difference between being a bystander and then fighting for a movement. And then you don't really realize where your position is until you're like thrown into that position almost. So something was said to them as a couple and she didn't speak up and she felt really guilty. So then this quote came after she didn't speak up. In 2007, there was a study. 21 white partners in interracial relationships were interviewed. Research showed that the white people who marry outside their race are likely to change their thoughts on how race plays a role in society. And then this is a doctor, he's a couples therapist. He was also in the article, and I like this quote. I always encourage the couples to have these hard conversations about race away from therapy when they're at home, because the point of therapy isn't what you do in the office, it's what you do all the time between in your real life. So basically just talking about how interracial couples, people in romantic relationships really need to be having these hard conversations. It's not easy for them. People stare at them in the streets, was in the article. People will say things out of the blue when you're walking somewhere in a store or something like that. You get weird looks. And when you see just a normal, what we consider normal family going around, like you don't get the same thing. But then when you see an interracial couple, interracial family and everything like that, then apparently it becomes non-normal anymore. So advocating for them and being a part of the movement is really important.
So I read something similar last night. It was like a BuzzFeed about like all the comments that like people in interracial relationships get. And a lot of them were like, one of the comments in particular was like, you know, they can dismiss pretty easily like this stuff about like from straight up racists, like the judging and stuff, but it's like when people like try to show their support, but like unintentionally kind of like participate in the stereotypes, that makes it really hard. So like a lot of them were about like how people look at, an interracial couple and they're like, you're gonna have beautiful babies. And like, it's kind of like, that's the exoticized bit, right? You look at interracial couples and it seems so exoticized. And then like their babies are like extra cute. It's kind of like, stop like, exoticizing my kid, right? Babies are cute. Like, they just kind of are. And like, don't turn my baby into an object to be evaluated. Like it's very problematic. Yeah. Yep. And so that was one of the ones that kind of stood out to me. All right. So this is again what Cheeto Childs was saying. So she talked about how like white families kind of put up objections and roadblocks to their white children dating interracially, whether that's Black or Asian or Indigenous or Latina, or Latinx, I should say. People talk about these families as either different or deviant or dangerous. So white families, they don't identify themselves as racist, and they don't like necessarily talk about race. The families have opposition, but they're not discussed in racialized terms. Instead, they're kind of like, but like what challenges will your kids face? And so like they can kind of take the form of white privilege. The opposing of interracial relationships ends up like with them like sort of like saying that we should maintain white privilege. I think this relates to Damien's question about privilege. So like white families worry that the children of these, unions will be mistreated because they're too Black. What was always surprising to me, and I don't know if you guys found this surprising as well, but like there's just as much and as heavy kind of pushback from Black families as from white families. What do you guys think? Were you surprised by this? Were you not so surprised? I mean, Damien's clip kind of shows that, right? That there's maybe as much pushback from families of color, specifically Black families, but less to kind of maintain privilege and instead to kind of maintain strength and solidarity of Black communities. Black families raise different issues like the importance of marrying Black, lingering suspicions of racism and distrust of whites in general. These seem like super legitimate to me. Like, these reasons, like, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like the fears that the white individual or the white, partner's family or community will mistreat the Black family member. This one is problematic, right? The relationship is a sign that the Black individual is not committed to her family or her community, or his family or his community. So one thing that's true of both families, so white and Black families both have objections to interracial couples, but for different kind of motives. Whites kind of trying to maintain, even if they're not aware of it, white privilege, and Black families want to kind of maintain community. Both kind of discuss it as like, it's not an objection to the individual, just to the idea. And then she says that dating is fine, but not marriage to a lot of these families. There's a worry that the children will be too Black to fit in, and so will be punished without white privilege there. There's another worry that like, if they're too white, they won't fit into the Black communities. It's really, I think it shows the centrality of race to the construction of families and identities, as well as the socially constructed nature of race. Okay. This is a graphic from Hannah, and I love it. Do you want to talk about it or? Okay.
All right, so I found this last night, and actually, when I was researching, there just isn't a lot of statistics on all of this, and I was shocked on that. So I found this, and I got really excited, just like you. So this is a graph, and what it's talking about is how people are responding to different races. So women responding to men, men responding to women. So women responding to men is on the left hand, men responding to women is on the right hand side. Up top is highest response rates, then down below is lower response rates. So if you can see men responding to women all the way down on your bottom right hand corner, this is lowest response rates. Asian, Black, Latino, and all white men have low response rates to Black women. And it only gets worse there. So if you go over women responding, lowest response rates to Black men. So you can sort of see a trend going here on just the racial divide between people, how people respond. As I'm doing more of my research on gender and race in the media, I'm learning that children actually start defining people by race at ages like 2 to 3. So yeah, so it's like really early and everything when we start like defining people by their skin tones instead of everything else people are. So yeah, this is a great graph. Do you have anything to say on it?
I think it really, so it also reminded me of the most recent shooting. I don't know if it's the most recent, so because there was those 2 back to back, but like the desexualization of Black women and the over sexualization of Asian women, and like how people kind of overly sexualize Asian women and kind of want, so this is something that wasn't at all in the reading, but is perhaps a good issue to talk about given our current circumstances, how like Black, Latino, and white men really kind of desire Asian women because they're seen as submissive and subservient, and like that they'll like they don't have agency to say no, right? So like yeah, so I don't know about you guys, but like the shooting seems obviously racially motivated to me. This is the shooting where a guy kind of went and shot up a couple Asian, was it I guess some of them were massage parlors and nail places. Yeah. Do you remember how many women were killed or people were killed? I'm trying to remember.
10? No, or is that Colorado? They happened back to back. 8.
It was 8. Is it 8? Yeah. I know it's hard. What was I gonna say? And he says like, so the guy said it wasn't because they were Asian women, and it's like, obviously it is, right? And I also thought like the media coverage was all about that one white woman who was killed, who was married to an Asian man, right? And it's kind of like very frustrating how Asian women are fetishized and turned into objects even more so than others. It's weird that like this bit is also worrisome, right? Like women don't really want to date Asian or Latino men, even if they are Latino or Asian, right? Like white men are kind of generally considered to be the most desirable. And this kind of matches the other article I had you guys read, which is the one about dating, queer dating, and how you think that queer people who identify as queer would be like more open to dating more diverse groups, and actually that's not the case, right? This is kind of reproduced. If you like, you can kind of sub out like gay men here, and it's still kind of they all want kind of a white partner. So I wanted to ask you guys, so remember Erica Cheeto Child's article is about marriage. She doesn't so much talk about dating. What characteristics of these relationships are true to dating as well as marriage? So So you know, they don't have objections to like the individual, just to the idea of racial difference, solidarity of the community, privilege. Like, what do you guys think? Let me go back. What characteristics of these relationships are true to dating as well as marriage? Or are we okay with dating, but less okay? Like, I feel like she kind of makes a distinction that I think is not between dating and marriage, that I think is kind of false. Does that make sense? I feel like we give people just as much shit for dating as well as marriage. Do you guys know Sex and the City?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. I know it's old. It's like 10 years old. But there was one episode in season 3 where like Samantha, she's like the super sex positive one of the group, who like you know, she's like the one who kind of like, you know, do whatever you want to make you feel good. She dates a black man. This is like the one time.
Adina!
And uptown, Samantha was about to come face to face with her own deal breaker.
Hey, what's up?
You tell me, I just got here.
Hey, Samantha. So, what's my favorite girl drink?
Champagne.
Right up.
What are you doing here? I told you I don't want you dating my brother. Adina, I'm a lovely person. At least get to know me, then hate me. This is not a game. This is my brother we're talking about. You know, for a woman with such a progressive view of world food, you know, that's business. This is family. I don't understand. What? I'll say it to you plain. I don't care how many Jennifer Lopez looking dresses you have hanging up in your closet. You don't belong in here. You can never understand what I'm talking about. This is a black thing. Now, would you please go and leave my brother alone? As Samantha turned to leave, she suddenly realized this wasn't a black thing. It was a Samantha thing. She'd never backed down to a loudmouth bitch before, and she wasn't about to start now.
Excuse me, but no woman, no matter what color, has the right to tell me who I can or cannot fuck.
Get your little white pussy away from my brother!
Get your big black ass out of my face. Oh, and your okra wasn't all that.
Everybody be cool, all right? All right? Keep it real. Keep it real. Real. What can I say? Adina has always been there for me. I mean, ever since Mom died, it's only been the two of us. Adina has her issues. And you had to go and insult her food, so you mean the world to me. But Adina, she's my blood.
Samantha knew the real problem wasn't her little white pussy. It was the fact that Siobhan was a big black pussy who wouldn't stand up to his sister. And for Samantha Jones, that was the deal breaker.
All right, what do you think of that clip? What do you kind of see happening there? How about what's problematic about this kind of representation of an interracial relationship?
I think it was more or less like family trying to protect family.
Right. And it's kind of like so it kind of shows how family tries to protect family, like the solidarity of Black communities. You know, what stereotypes does it kind of perpetuate? Problematic, you know, racial stereotypes.
I feel like also she was kind of justified in, I mean, not justified in the way that she reacted to her dating her brother, but like you were mentioning earlier, there's a lot of fetishization of races. So she was probably looking out for his best interest and wanted to make sure she was after him for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's a famous line from the same episode that like Samantha's like, I don't see color, I see conquests. Like, and so like it's like this is very problematic. Number one, because of like colorblind racism. To say that you don't see color is such a white privilege thing to do. And then the other one is like seeing kind of people as conquests. So problematic. Right. So I feel like so Crystal says like she is justified in kind of being angry about this. I feel like the episode is really kind of doing a lot of problematic work on the angry Black woman stereotype. Like all Black women are kind of stereotyped to be angry all the time and to be the rulers of their families, like, and kind of Black men are kind of like seen as either like deadbeats or as pussy whipped, like even if it's just by their like female relatives. So I feel like this episode kind of lets us dig into a lot of like the problematic assumptions and stereotypes that go into interracial relationships. Maybe it's not true anymore. Maybe Sex and the City is super outdated, but I'm hoping yes. Makes sense. Like it shows kind of the things that like interracial couples who care about their families like have to deal with and overcome, I guess. Yes, River.
I feel like if anything reaches 10 years or close to 10 years, then it's outdated.
Okay. I'll try to keep my
especially with how fast we've been moving
stuff more relevant.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So discussion 14.1 asks you something that's kind of relevant to your upbringing. So think of a show or a film you have seen that shows interracial or intersectional dating. The one I always think of is Get Out. What elements of today's reading do you see that illustrate in this piece, and what does this text add that was not discussed? So take like 5 minutes and choose one thing where you've seen interracial or intersectional dating. So this means like not just race, but like also like LGBTQ stuff, right? As well as like ability, ableism, stuff like that. And then like, so tell me in your discussion what text you're kind of thinking about, and then what elements of today's reading do you see illustrated in the piece, and what from the show or the television or whatever kind of challenges or goes against this piece. Okay, I'm gonna give you like 5 minutes to kind of work on that, and I'm gonna stop sharing. Oops. So 14.1 will bring you to 14.2. So click on 14.2. Sorry about that. Yeah, Sarah and Daisy. I haven't seen Shameless, but I keep being told to watch it. Take like one more minute. Okay. All right. Good. So there's stuff up from Get Out or How to Get Away with Murder, Grey's Anatomy, Shameless. I feel like the representations of interracial relationships are like more widespread and a lot healthier, right? In the recently. Okay. All right, let's look at the other article. So this is called Darker Shades of Queer. The author is Chong Soo Khan, an Asian man. And, he says that I asked, like, what has he experienced in communities of color? What has he experienced in gay communities? He says that like different people who have been marginalized don't build coalitions or band together. Instead, they join the oppressors in oppressing others, resulting in many gay white folks becoming more racist than non-gay folks and many people of color becoming more homophobic. What do you guys think of this insight? It's really smart. It kind of also like takes us back to that slide from Hannah, and also kind of shows how tricky it is to kind of escape culture and escape culture's influence. Hannah?
All right, so this is from LGBT funders.org. This is just a little bit of statistics. So 42% of LGBTQ adults identify as people of color, 21% who identify as Latino or Latina, 12% as Black, 2% as Asian, and 1% as American Indian and Alaska Native. More diverse than overall US adult population, which is 60% white. 1 in 5 youth in the juvenile justice systems identify as LGBTQ, and 85% of whom are people of color. And I don't know if you guys know, and we have talked about this. You guys do know interracial and all the racists and all of everything in our judicial court system and things like that. All right. 15% of African-American LGBTQ, there should be Q there, adults are unemployed, as are 14% of Latinx LGBTQ adults, 11% LGBTQ adults, and then compared to 8% of the overall unemployment for the general population.
It's got to be Asian Pacific Islander, right? API.
Yes. Yep. Asian Pacific Islander. Yep.
So double.
Yeah. So basically what these statistics show is that there is still diversity in with race in the LGBTQ community, and that there is still quite of oppressions, I guess you can say. So all these statistics show like the juvenile court system one, like that's crazy. So like 1 in 5 youth, all right, well, they're part of the LGBTQ plus community. Well, 85% of them are people of color. So these statistics just sort of go further into the article we were just discussing about race in the LGBTQ plus community. As you can see over
LGBTQ plus community, no, never mind. Sorry, I interrupted, but I lost it.
It's okay. Can you go back to the other one though?
Yeah.
Cool. I want to talk about this graph down here. Black LGBTQ youth who have attempted suicide in the past year. So the pink is cisgender, and the yellow is transgender and non-binary youth. As you can see, there is a proportionally difference between the suicide attempt rates. And that definitely comes from community and culture, what is accepted in your community and culture and what isn't. So in the next slide, so on the LGBTQ plus funders, it's not on this slide, but on this website, it talked about culture and Black culture and how being a part of the LGBTQ plus community isn't as accepted in the Black culture as it may be in white culture.
It reminds me of growing up trans, like that the kid who had the hardest time had a Black dad, right?
Right. Yep. So what we talked about, all the bars, and that put us in like these cages, and being a part of this community, LGBTQ plus, also coming from the Black community, maybe being in juvenile court systems, and then we can keep listing of all these different bars that just keep people inside those cages of oppression. And
they don't, instead of like, they see access to power as like through like a relationship with a more like the privileged person, right? And instead of banding together, right? They really want kind of to like almost like access power through, right? This which kind of goes into like what this is also from the article Darker Shades of Queer. He talks about like what's considered acceptable gayness, partly in the media. He says like whiteness is everywhere in the gay community, and in the media most of gay representation is that of upper middle class, if not outright rich gay. And I think of it as men. Maybe this has changed though. His article is not that recent. What do you guys think? Yes, no, maybe so? Or is this still true?
Representation could always use improvements, even today.
Mm-hmm. True.
So I sent out a survey to about 40 people, 37 people answered, and it was on race and gender in the media. And one of my questions was, has the media ever offended you? How and what? Like what happened? And somebody said that they get very offended when a person, a part of the LGBTQ plus community, is represented on TV, but by a straight person. By cisgender, by heterosexual, somebody that fits that mold, and they're playing somebody that's gay, somebody that's queer, somebody that's bi, somebody that's transgender, whatever the case may be, on a show. And they said that really offends them. So I think representation needs to change. I think that if we are representing something or somebody, we should be doing it in the most authentic way possible, most genuine way possible. So yeah.
So I was thinking about like where he might have gotten this from, and like the very first kind of show to kind of have represented like gay characters was Will and Grace, right? We have two successful white men, right? Now I'm doubting myself, but I think they're both white. Jack and Will. Okay, good. And then the one I was thinking of is a Modern Family, which maybe is not relevant anymore. I'm showing my age, right? So here's a kind of, do I want to show this clip? It's 10:23. I'm just going to kind of show you this article. Modern Family deserves praise for inclusion, but also like criticism for gay stereotypes, right? They're really rich. This one, who's actually straight, is played as super feminine, and this one is kind of, yeah. And so here's a clip, but I think I'll just post it on the recommended if you want to look at it later. Yeah, okay. So he eventually talks about how like when gay men are kind of looking for partners, they say things like no femmes, Asians, or fats. So people of color are not allowed in leadership positions in the gay community. Gay marriage was definitely kind of a linchpin for the white middle class section of society, or a section of that community. And gay men of color often refuse to date other men who they want. So I was like, he talks about how gay men of color refuse to date other gay men of color. They want white male partners. And I was wondering if this is true of women or lesbians or other people. What do you guys think? I feel like, I don't know, just from the lesbians I know, like they're a little bit more open.
So I've had some arguments, and this is just my own personal experience, and not TA, student, Nichols College, like just my own personal experience. I know I've had some arguments with some people, like, oh, well, my roommate just came out as gay. I'm like, okay, well, everybody has a type. They're like, oh, but what if they hit on me? I'm like, they've been roommates with you for X amount of years.
Yeah.
Everybody has a type. So I think even when it comes to like heterosexual, and then when it comes to sexuality and stuff, like you have a preference. So I don't know how relevant it is for gay men of color to refuse to like date other gay men of color, or vice versa with white men or things like that. I haven't had any experience with that. I've had experience with uncomfortability, heteronormative type things, like men and women thinking, oh, just because they're gay or something, they're gonna hit on me. Like, no, everybody has a type. Everybody likes certain aspects about a person. So
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly what Anna said, that I don't really think it has to do with literally anything that goes on today. Like, you could be white and like Asian, you could be white and like blacks. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, everyone has their own type. So if that's not your type, then that's not your type.
I guess probably the author of the piece is he's Asian, so like he's probably lamenting the number of people who are willing to even give him a shot and get to know him, right?
we can't run away from our implicit biases. So when we write and things like that and stuff, we could be writing in our own worldview. You know what I mean? So makes sense.
Yeah, but he's kind of like sad about the implicit biases, right? The ways that dominant culture poisons subcultures that think that they're beyond them. Yeah.
Wait, can I add something in really quick?
Please, yes.
I also think this kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier, how we kind of adapt to other cultures within our own culture. And like I've noticed personally that in the LGBTQ community, femmes in lesbian relationships are often scrutinized, while non-feminine lesbians are scrutinized by the straight community. So it's kind of like no matter where you go, like you're going to face some sort of adversity or be excluded or invalidated in your own, way of being in life. Like if you are a femme, bisexual, you're often looked at by lesbians as a fake gay, and then you look at more masculine lesbians from the perspective of a straight person, and, they're scrutinized for that. So I feel like you really can't win when we like box ourselves in the way that we do.
Especially
and for a culture that is so desperately like trying to avoid labels, I feel like we label ourselves so heavily, which is like frustrating, but I understand the reason why we need to. But yeah, that's just my take.
Yeah. So I did grow up in a different era from you guys, so I'm probably a lot a lot more like interested or invested in or kind of shaped by the labels. Yeah. But one of my best friends, she identifies as a lipstick lesbian, and she was like not welcomed by her college's gay community because she wasn't gay enough. And it's kind of like, so hard. So I have this article. I don't know. Are you guys interested in reading this article? We could keep going, or you guys could kind of look at it. It's an older article. It's from 2016. It's about the men who want AIDS and how it improved their lives. I know. So like I said, it's even older, 2013. so this is not an issue. This was this article came out in Out magazine, and it was before gay marriage was legalized. And it tried to kind of shed light on other issues. So what do I want you to do with this? We have 10 minutes. Let me just look at what else I got planned for today. We have that one, and then discussion 14.3. Oh yeah, right. You guys know the show Master of None? This might be more relevant or more, I think it might be worth watching this and kind of doing this one instead of 14.2 for now, at least. And then, you know, Say Her Name is about kind of violence against Black women, girls, and femmes. Oops. All right. You guys, have you seen, anyone seen Master of None and this Thanksgiving episode? Okay. Do you know Lena Waithe? Okay.
Can I tell your mom? Being gay isn't something Black people love to talk about.
I'm just glad you're in college and you ain't pregnant and on drugs.
You gotta worry about me getting pregnant. I'm not gonna get pregnant because I don't like having sex with men.
Have you tried it?
No.
All right, you know Erica?
White Erica or Black Erica?
Nah, mixed Erica.
Oh yeah, I know mixed Erica. She's cute.
I like her. I have a crush on her.
Wait, are you trying to tell me that you're, you know...
Lebanese.
Wait, you're from Lebanon?
No, I don't know how to, I'm not comfortable with the word lesbian.
All right, so we'll say you're Lebanese.
Ma, I'm gay.
What?
I'm gay. I've always been gay. But I'm still the same person. I'm still your daughter. Nothing's changed.
Me being gay is like tarnishing her trophy. Some Black people think being gay is the choice. And when they find out that their kid is gay, they try to figure out what they did wrong.
I don't want life to be hard for you. It is hard enough being a Black woman in this world. Now you want to add something else to it. It's not like this was my choice.
I think it's cool you're a Lebanese trophy.
Thanks, dude.
Damn, this has been an intense talk.
All right, so that show is on Netflix, and the whole episode is really good. What did you guys think? Like, what are some of the kind of issues from today's talking and reading that you saw kind of represented, and how does it add a perspective that's missing from today's readings?
So I was just reading about this. I think that both of our articles didn't really mention anything about like gays and how like they could be like harmed or portrayed in a sense. Maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see it because I feel like more or less it was just kind of like blacks and whites.
Even the darker shades of queer article?
I only really had time to read the first one. So
okay, then yeah. So the other one was about gay men, but like the perspective of like women, gay women and gay women of color in particular are kind of missing from today's reading. So you're right about that. And so I kind of tried to like talk about like what's different for this. And Lena Waithe kind of wrote it more or less from personal experience. So this episode was written, directed, and acted by her. And I think it was, I'm not sure about directed, but I think the rest of it is right. And so like this is like her telling her story about a conversation she had with her mom and her community and stuff like that. And it's funny. It's a funny episode.
Do you guys think, and this is just like a little question, just carry on the conversation before class ends. Do you guys think that the areas of our country, like depending where you're from, like we're all from, like not, it depends where you're from, but like we all go to school in like the Northeast, you know what I mean? Like with college and stuff. Do you think some areas of the United States maybe hasn't changed or become so modern to the fact of interracial couples or just like the fact of like,
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. There's no doubt that there are places in this country, even within this state, that still haven't grown.
That's what I was thinking. Like you probably, there's like a wider pool of people of color to date in other places. I find the Northeast super white.
But it is, yeah. Demographically, that's not even, I fight with a lot of people on demographics and stuff because I tell them half the times this isn't like just what I think. I go, this is like statistics. Like you look at the statistics of the population from the Northeast to like even like the Southeast. Oh my gosh, there is
the West, right? Like even Chicago and parts of Illinois,
yeah,
Indiana and stuff. Yeah.
I think the closer you get to cities, the more modern they become, but not necessarily. Obviously, you're always going to find a bad apple and a bunch of good ones. But I feel the closer you get to cities, the more accepting people can be. But depends.
So what do I want you guys to take away from today? I guess like maybe kind of intersectionality and like all the ways that trying to kind of wrap everything up and kind of summarize what we've been talking about, like how like even if you have all the privilege in the world, like sometimes your life can be affected by racism depending on who you fall in love with, even from places that you don't expect. And then once you add kind of other sexualities as well as race, you can again like encounter surprising resistance from people you thought were allies. And how like probably the most vulnerable are, Black women and girls who identify as non-straight or non-cis, right? So Patricia Hill Collins, she was one of the recommended readings, and she talked about how like dominant culture is blind to alternative sexualities in general, but especially queer Black women. And she talks about the case of Sakia Gunn, and I had never heard of Sakia Gunn. Has anyone heard of her? So she was, a Black woman in Manhattan, and she was killed by a bunch of men who approached her. So a bunch of men approached her and kind of were like trying to ask her out and stuff like that. She told them that she was a lesbian, and they beat her to death. So they erased her because she was a woman and Black and also LGBTQ. And so there's so much violence against, especially queer and trans women of color, that it's important to kind of have like, so the say her name is kind of a way to kind of undo the erasure of violence or the normalization of violence against these populations of women. Makes sense? Yeah, maybe, sort of. I don't know how successful I was in today's class. I felt really good going in, but maybe. So you did 14.1. Choose either 14.2 or 14.3 to answer in the last 2 minutes of class. And let's see. For next time, we're actually not meeting on Tuesday. Work on your R. participant observations. And let's see. After that, we will do Oppression Olympics and Isaac will present. So Oppression Olympics, I got to figure out what I really want you to do. So I want you to kind of read and be ready to discuss this article, Seeing More Than Black and White, and I'm going to get you into groups, and you're each going to kind of research the history of a group that's been marginalized in American history and culture: Asian and Chinese Americans, Native Americans, Hispanic, Latinx and Chicano Americans, Irish, Italian Americans, and African and Black Americans. So how many people are in this class? It's like 20. So there's going to be like 5 people in each group. Does anyone want to kind of grab a group now before we leave? Anyone want to research about one particular group in particular?
Can I do 4?
Yes. So that's Crystal Pizzi.
Mhm. And Kyle said to do, I think, group 4 too. He said it in the chat.
Was that Pizzi, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do the last one. Kayla.
Kayla. Okay, Jamie, last one. Whoops.
I'll do the last one, Sarah.
Okay, David and Jared and Sarah.
Can you add Mel to the last one as well?
Mel. Daisia.
I'll do Native Americans.
All right, Emma. I really want 2 A's to be in your name, apparently. Claire.
I'll do Native Americans.
Okay, who's that?
Emily.
Emily. You guys can work together on this, or I mean, I guess I would probably work together on this. All right, so African Americans full. Ari, Mandy. No one has looked into Latina yet.
I'll do it.
All right, River.
I'll do Crystal Pizzi.
That one. Who else? Savannah?
Yeah, I'll do that one too.
Others? Probably just start assigning people. Okay. So how about John? Do you have a preference?
No, you can just throw me anywhere.
All right. Damien? I'm gonna put you here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Jamie? Jamie's there already. Sarah's there. David's there. Lauren.
Lauren and Maddie said that they wanted to be in the first one in the chat.
Awesome. So that one's now full. Maddie. Ugh. What about Isaac? I'm gonna put you here, Isaac. Shannon, Olivia, Mandy. No, Mandy's all right.
I'll do Native Americans.
All right, I'm gonna put Shannon here. Samantha, do you have one?
But Professor, you just put Olivia in Chinese and Americans.
What did you ask for, Olivia?
Oh yeah, I said Native Americans. Thanks for catching that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll email you guys this list. I'll finish putting people places like Emily and a couple more. Okay, all right. Thank you for doing that. Thanks for talking today. I'm looking forward to your participant observations on Tuesday. Have a really good weekend, and I'll see you next Friday when we play Oppression Olympics. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Have a good weekend, Professor.
You too.
Have a good weekend.
You too.